Okay, sit yourself on your lift and come into a good cross-legged position. So just have a little wriggle around to make sure that you feel like you're sitting evenly. And then hold on to your knees and lift and open the chest, drawing your shoulders down away from your ears. Just look down at the floor, look at something that's not moving. Soften your jaw and your tongue and your throat. Allow the in-breath to be as non-resistant as possible. Just fill in the lungs from the bottom to the top. Breathing into both lungs evenly. Breathing out of both lungs evenly. Bring your hands into Namaste. Press the palms firmly together. Lengthen from the armpits into the elbows. And then allow your eyes to gently close. Just spend a little time lifting the chest, drawing the shoulders down away from your ears, fill in the lungs from the top to the bottom, from the bottom to the top. Fill in the lungs from the bottom to the top, even emptying them from the top to the bottom. Very gently draw your chin down to meet your chest. Spend a moment to seek to generate a genuine, heartfelt sense of gratitude for something or someone or somewhere. And then gently release the backs of your hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards. And then as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open. Focus to softly come back, hold onto your knees, lift up into the chest, drawing your shoulders down away from your ears. Take a deep inhalation in through the nose. And then turn to the right side, drawing your abdomen across, your ribs across. Feel that you're waking up the body with the turn. Just listen to the breath and use the out breath to turn a little more deeply. And then come back to the center, hold onto your knees, lift up into the chest, drawing your shoulders down, take a deep inhalation in through the nose. And then turn to the left, drawing your abdomen across, your ribs across, your shoulders across. And then gently come back to the center. Come off your lift. Come onto your knees. Just sit back on your heels. Just let your legs kind of sandwich together. Activate the shins, press in the shins into the floor so that you start to lift the chest. So the extension often begins at the floor. So press your shins really consciously into the floor so that you can lift up into the chest. Hinging entirely at the hips, keeping your back straight, come forwards. Using that hinge of the hips rather than the rounding of the back to come down. Feel that the pelvic region really, the front rim of the pelvis really draws into the front of the legs. And you come forwards, keeping the chest lifted, stretching the armpits open, and then bring the forehead down. Just working to turn the tailbone in, just feel how good it feels to lengthen out on the floor, drawing the tailbone down to the floor, down to the heels, and then lengthening from the hips into the armpits, from the armpits into the elbows, into the wrists, into the palms, into the fingers, into the fingertips, into the fingernails. Come up onto your knees, turn your toes under, and then with bent knees initially, come up into dog down. So bending your knees so that you can access the tilt of the pelvis, so that the shoulder blade region draws in. Draw the abdomen gently in towards the spine. Tighten your kneecaps. Draw the kneecaps through to the backs of the knees. Activate the thighs, lifting the thigh muscle, the front thigh muscle up towards the top of the leg, up into the hip socket. Turn the fronts of the thighs inwards. Just breathe deeply and evenly, filling both lungs evenly. Step your feet forwards, come up into a standing position. Just have blocks for your hands if you are doing half uttanasana. So do half uttanasana if you've got any back problems. Otherwise, just have your feet as wide apart as the mat, turning your toes in, raising your arms up, lifting up into the chest, hooking the thumbs into the crease of the elbows, wrapping the fingers around your elbows, and then come forwards again, hinging entirely at the hips, and then hanging down. Do half uttanasana if you have got a bad back. So using blocks on the floor for your hands and extending the chest forwards. So half uttanasana for a bad back, otherwise hang down. Just feel how the legs need to lift out of the feet in order to really activate the hips. So it's where we connect to the floor that drives the extension, that we lift out of the floor to defy gravity. Just listen to the breath. And then bring your hands back onto the floor, come into half uttanasana, and then walk your hands towards the end of your mat. Bring your hands shoulder width apart this time, and then step your feet hip width apart. And then come back up into a refreshed Adho Mukha Svanasana, lifting out of the hands, out of the feet, lifting up to the apex of the triangle, which is at the hips. So using the lifting action out of the hands and out of the feet to drive up into the hips so that you can really focus on that activation of the front rim of the pelvis. Breathing evenly and deeply listening to the breath. Keep your hands where they are, keep your feet where they are, swing your hips forwards, come into dog, up at the crease of the elbows facing the front, broadening the chest, pushing into your heels, but then trying to draw the abdomen, the diaphragm region through the arms, lifting up into the chest. Broadening the diaphragm. And then come back up into dog down. Just listening to the breath as it enters and as it exits. Allowing the lungs to be as non-resistant as you can, in order that you can then absorb the energy of the breath. So the oxygen comes into our lungs and percolates through the lining of the lungs into the blood. So feel that conversion. So we breathe in energy, and that energy percolates into the blood. And then the out breath allows us to draw that energy around the physical body. Okay, step your feet forwards and then come up into a standing position. Just come into Tadasana. So just be in the center of your mat. In Tadasana, just lift and open the chest. So breathe evenly in through the nose and out through the nose. Just feeling that conversion from breath into energy around the lungs. Now the heart pumps that fully oxygenated blood around the body. Bring your arms out nice and wide into the chest, and then step or jump your feet apart nice and wide. Turn your left toes in, your right leg and foot all the way out. Then come back to face the front. Reactivate the legs. Turn the legs as we normally do. And then come back down, find the shin, look up. So when you're in the pose, don't just be satisfied with just finding the general shape. When you come into the pose, feel that you can activate those elements of method and technique that we have applied to the pose in the past. So I could easily give you a list of those. But I want you to feel where your body is. Feel where the hips are. Feel where the front leg hip is. Feel out the turning of the legs. Feeling the lift of the chest. And just see if you can bring them into better alignment. Breathing evenly, filling the lungs from the bottom to the top. Feeling that energy percolating into the blood. Reach up, come back to the center, swap the feet around, turn the right toes in. Left leg and foot all the way out, lift up into the chest. Keeping that back leg firm. Just be in the pose and try and improve the alignment. Because when the alignment improves, then the energy flow improves. So we're going for optimal energy. Reach up with the top hand, come back to the center, bring the feet parallel, and then step or jump the feet back together, and then come back into Tadasana. Just listen to the breath. Breathing evenly and deeply, listening to the sound of the breath. So we can do padangusthasana, the standing forward bend. So have your feet hip width apart, turning your toes in. If you know that you can't reach your toes, then you can use a belt underneath the big toes. And then so have them hooked underneath the big toe, have the belt hooked underneath the big toes. And then when you come forward, again, you hinge at the hips and just shorten the distance. But try not to come forwards like this, where the hips are kind of literally locked, and you do all of the extension from your spine, because that's never going to get you down as low as the hips will. So really focus on the hips. Turn the toes in, lift up into the chest, have your hands on your hips, lift up into the chest. Feel that you can stretch the skin of the front of the body upwards. Keeping the back entirely straight. Come forwards, hinging entirely at the hips, drawing that front rim of the pelvis into the tops of the legs. Keep coming forwards, even when you know you could reach your toes, keep coming forwards. And then let go of the hips. Hook the index finger and the middle finger underneath the big toe. Wrap the thumb around the outside of the big toe. And then reactivate those legs. Push the kneecaps into the sockets. Turn the fronts of the thighs in. Draw the front rim of the pelvis into the tops of the thighs. And then extend the chest away. So try not drawing the body into the legs yet. Extend into the spine. So using the hinging of the hips. If your hips feel restricted, then turn your toes in a little more. So the more you turn your toes inwards, the more freedom you'll have in your hips. So you feel that you can really activate the hips. Also, if you feel restriction in your hips, go a little bit wider. But keep the toes turning in. Extend the chin and the chest forwards. Breathe in evenly. And then hinging entirely at the hips. Maybe bend your elbows out to the side. If you can straighten your back at the extension stage, then you can bend your elbows out to the side. Draw the body in towards the gap between the legs. So padangusthasana. Feeling that stretch of the legs, lifting the legs out of the feet, keeping the feet in really firm contact with the floor. Trying to lift the big toes out of the floor like you're ripping a nail out of the floor, but stamping the big toes down at the same time. Okay, and then just release your hands, come into half uttanasana, right on the fingertips. Bring the hands into the hips and then bend your knees on the way up if you need to and come up into the standing position. Good, and then just be back in Tadasana. Stretch your arms up, advisable, lengthening up into the little fingers. Spreading the palms, lifting the arms, opening the armpits. Lifting out of the feet into the legs, into the hips, into the chest, into the side ribs, into the armpits, into the arms, into the hands, into the fingers, into the fingernails. And then release. So we'll do padahastasana. And padahastasana is where we start in the same way. There's that good hinging action of the hips. And then this time, again, we come forwards, lengthening forwards, even though you kind of feel like you could reach the floor easily, keep coming forwards. And then you place the hand underneath the foot, so the palm of the hand is facing the the bottom of the foot, and then you lengthen into the chest in the same way as you did last time. Now, if you know that you can't reach, then you can get a folded blanket and fold the blanket so that it gives you a little curb stop. So it's like you're standing on the kind of edge of a curb. So you just bring the top of the foot, of the heels on the floor, on the lift, and then as you come forward, you get that good stretch at the backs of the calves. So then you use the belt or hold onto the big toes, like you did in padangusthasana. So it's just the tops of the foot, the heels are on the floor. So have your feet hip width apart, go a little wider if you need to, and have the toes turning inwards because it gives you space in your hips. It frees up your hips. So turn the toes in. Activate the kneecaps, lift up into the chest. Feel that the spine is extending up into the head and it stays straight as you hinge at the hips. Turning those toes inwards, keeping extension in the chest, lengthening the chest towards the wall in front of you, and then facing the floor, drawing down to face the floor, all through this turning action of the pelvis. And then reach down. See if you can bring the hand underneath the feet. So the palm of the hand is in contact with the sole of the foot. And then reactivate the legs, tighten the kneecaps, lift from the feet up into the legs, up into the hips. Reactivating the hips, reactivating the spine, lengthening the spine away from the legs. Breathe in evenly. If you can straighten your back at this stage, then bend your elbows out to the side, again entirely relying on the fluidity of the hips to bring the body between the gap between the legs, or in the gap between the legs. Just breathing evenly, listening to the breath, activating your kneecaps, pushing your kneecaps through to the backs of the knees. Okay, and then just release your hands, just come into half uttanasana. Just breathing evenly and deeply, and then walk your hands towards the end of your mat. Have your hands shoulder width apart, step the feet hip width apart, and then come back into dog down. So softening your jaw and your tongue and your throat. Feel how the energy of the body has extended into the skin, maybe just around the hips and around the buttocks, but feel how your energy can activate your skin. I'm holding you too long in the pose, then rest in Adho Mukha Virasana, but if you can stay and maintain a little longer, then do, and use the energy of the pose to grow into the pose. Okay, come down onto your knees and then just sit back on your heels. Just lift up into the chest. Just feel how you've really brought the physical body to life, how the legs feel different, how the hips feel alive, how the chest feels lifted and open. If your energy feels kind of stuck around a particular area, So often an area of resistance, then use your breath to distribute it. So especially your out breath, push your out breath into areas of focus or areas of discomfort. So just feel how sitting in virasana changes the energy in your legs. Just come onto all fours. Just have your hands underneath your shoulders, your knees underneath your hips. And then draw the right knee to make contact with the right wrist, and then bring the right foot underneath the left hip. So it's closer to the leg than to the hand, the foot. And then lengthen that left leg away. So come into rajakapotasana. Come up onto the fingertips. And then extend the spine up towards the ceiling, lengthening into that left leg, lifting up into the chest, feeling that the pelvis is level. And then come down onto your elbows. Interlock the fingers as if you're going to go up into a headstand. So a little wriggle in the hips. So just see if you can find that levelness of the pelvis. So activate that left leg, turning the left leg like you're in Tadasana to keep the hips level, to keep that front rim of the pelvis level. Just lift up into the chest, even though the elbows are on the floor, lift up into the chest. And then come back up into the pose, bring your hands close to your knees, and then lift up into the chest. This time, maybe you want to lift the left foot up, and then reach around with the right hand, get hold of that left foot. Feel that the pelvis doesn't go out of line. Lift up into the chest. So you can just stay at the previous pose, just lifting up into the chest. Push the foot into the arm, push the foot into the hand into the foot. And then release, just bring the palms down, walk in with that right knee, and then just come back onto all fours, and then just sit back on your heels for a moment. Just sit back on your heels, just feel how the hips and the legs feel slightly different. And then come back up onto all fours. Just breathing evenly, just listening to the sound of the breath. And then bring the left knee close, or to make contact with the left wrist, and then bring that left foot so it sits close to the thigh, and the heel is going to be underneath the right hip. And then lengthen that right hip, that right leg away so that the foot is just underneath the hip. And then come up onto the fingertips, lift up into the chest. Extend into that back leg, tadasanaise that back leg, lift up into the chest. Breathe. And then just come down onto your elbows. Just use this as a little way to kind of just massage the hips, just to kind of feel that the hips can just find some fluidity, find some movement. Lift up into the chest, even though the elbows are on the floor. And then resettle the hips. So often it's the bent leg hip that is higher than the straight leg hip. So see if you can find that levelness. Come back onto the fingertips. Lift up into the chest. Extend that right leg away a little more if you can. And then if you can bend up that right leg, reach around with the left hand, and then again try and keep the hips level. Push the foot into the hand into the foot, lift up into the chest. Sweeping the right side of the abdomen across to the left. And then release, just come back up into rajakapotasana with the leg on the floor. And then bring the heel of the hands down onto the floor, turn the toes under, and then walk in with that right leg, and then just reset, and then just sit back on your heels. So just sit on your heels with the knees apart, big toes together, lift up into the chest, and then just hinging at the hips, forwards, and into Adho Mukha virasana. So just breathing non-resistantly. Okay, and then just sit back on your heels, and then just sit directly on the floor or on a lift if you need it, underneath your seat bones, and then just stretch out into your legs. So we're just going to lift up into the chest. Have a belt handy, just roll over, just move the buttock flesh out to the side. Make sure that you feel level on the floor. So lift up into the chest, driving the chest upwards. And then get hold of the back of the left knee and then bring the foot like you're going to do the tree pose, like you can do virasana. And then bring the hips level. Draw the abdomen from the left to the right. Reach up with the left arm and then extend up into that left side. And then see, can you reach forwards and take hold of the outside of the little toe side of the foot. If you can't reach, or if you're trying not to overdo your back, then just come onto the pose with a belt around the foot. Otherwise, see if you can reach forwards onto the little toe side. And then get hold of the abdomen and then draw the abdomen from the left to the right. So if you can't hold onto the foot, you just hold onto the outside of the leg. Lift up into the chest. With the other hand, you're pushing into the floor to keep the spine long. And then reach around the little toe side of the foot with the right hand. Reach around the inside of the foot with the left hand. And then tilt the pelvis so you lift up into the chest. Breathing evenly and deeply. Keep tilting at the pelvis, keeping the chest lifted all the time. Bend your elbows out to the side, reach around the foot if you can. Keeping that straight leg really firmly activated. So press that straight leg really firmly into the floor. Turning the abdomen from the left to the right. Feeling the stretch of the legs. And then come up to the center. Just observe that quietness that comes from coming out of a forward bend. Just reset, just stretching the legs away. Lift up into the chest. And then bring the right leg out. Try not to disturb the hips as you do. So that the leg is like you're doing virasana. Lift up into the chest. Turn the chest. Just reach up with the right hand. Reach. Try and lengthen into those right ribs. And then hinging at the hips, come forwards and reach the outside of the little toe side of the foot. And then with the left hand in the floor, dig into the floor with that left hand and lift the chest, hinge in the hips, turning the abdomen from the left to the right. Get hold of the abdomen and turn it. And then reach around the outside of the foot with your left hand. Reach around the inside of the big toe side of the foot with your right hand. And then go back to the hips. Keep the chest lifted. Really activate that leg. Keep the chest lifted, just using the belt if you need to. And then reach forwards. Reach around the foot if you can. But working from the hips, keeping the head lifted until the very last moment. So you want to draw your neck towards the floor before you get your head onto the floor, onto the leg. Hinging at the hips. Turning the abdomen. Activating that straight leg. So it's less important to get the head down onto the leg than it is to get the chest onto the leg. Just enjoy that extension of the front leg. And then lift the chest. And then just reset the legs, just come into bandhastasana. Just observe that quietness that comes over the brain from coming out of a forward bend. And then just bring the legs into swastikasana, into cross legs. Just hold onto your knees, lift up into your chest and draw the shoulders down away from your ears. So breathe evenly and deeply, listening to the sound of the breath. Draw your chin down to meet your chest. Jalandhara bandha, lift mula bandha. Lifting the anal sphincter up towards the diaphragm region. Just focusing on filling the lungs from the bottom to the top and allowing the lungs to overflow into the energy of the lungs to overflow into the arms and the legs and the chest. Just sitting with your energy. Maintaining the consciousness of the feeling of the physical body in conjunction with the energetic body. Drawing your mental body into that celebration and unity of physical and energetic. And then release Mula Bandha, release Jalandhara Bandha. Just hold onto your knees, lift up into the chest, take a deep inhalation, and then turn to the right side, drawing your abdomen across, your ribs across, your shoulders across, keeping your neck soft. And then come back to the center, lift up into the chest, driving the chest upwards. Take a deep inhalation in through the nose. And then turn to the left, drawing the abdomen across, the ribs across, the shoulders across. And then come back to the center. Just come down onto your back. Just hold onto the sides of the mat, bend your knees into your chest, and then stretch your legs up to the ceiling. If you struggle to lift your legs, then put a lift, even a bolster underneath your lower back, so that you've got good elevation of the spine, good elevation of the legs. So just a gentle inversion, just to quieten the brain. Okay, and then just bend your knees, bring your feet back onto the floor, pull your knees in towards your chest, just have a little gentle rock from side to side, just easing out any tension from the back. And then sit yourself up, get a blanket for underneath your head, just place that underneath your head, supporting the back of your neck and your head. And then just make sure that you're in a really good straight line. Just move your equipment out of the way so that you can stretch across the floor without any resistance. It's nice to take your glasses off in Shavasana, and then just allow yourself to release into the floor. Just listen to the sound of the breath. Just allow the physical body to completely let go, unhooking the muscles of the arms and the legs. Allowing the physical body to become heavy. And out of that heaviness comes lightness. As your energy rises to the top of the skin, so staying self-contained within the skin, you just rise into the uppermost skin. Use your in-breath and your out-breath to distribute that feeling of energetic lightness evenly throughout the body, down into the tips of the toes, the tips of the fingers, and into the top of the head. Basking in that feeling of energetic lightness. And then when you're ready to disturb yourself, just wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, and then bend your knees in toward your chest. Just have a little rock from side to side, from top to bottom, just a gentle massage on the spine, just grounding the energy just by observing the contact between the skin and the floor. Just a little grounding massage, and then just gently roll over onto your right side. Just stay down for a breath or two, and then stretch out the top leg. Come back up into a seated position. Just cross legs with your hands in the masti, just a final spinal lift. Draw your breath in through your nose and down into the abdomen. Be conscious of the energy that you have released through your practice this morning, that good, positive, healthy flow of clean energy, the extensions and the forward bends and the twists and the inversions bring to the body and to the mind. And then draw your chin down to meet your chest. Spend a moment to seek to acknowledge the positive energy you've created inside. And then radiate some of that positive energy out into the world. And then release the backs of your hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards, and then as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and focus to softly come back. Thank you very much. Thank you. So hopefully you feel as though you have really just stretched out your body and you've released your positive energy. So thank you very much for joining me.